I've created 4 different sprites for an explosion. The first 3 ones I want to be animated whenever an enemy has been destroyed, and the final one, or all 4 of them, whenever the ship is destroyed. So let's have a look at the code. I need a new type, so let's create an explosion type, which will consist of 2 options, small or a large. Now, we need a new explosion class that will handle the behavior 1 explosion. Later on, I will implement an explosions class, which will hold a list of explosions, or explosion objects basically. So, now, public class explosion will inherit console base, and then in the constructor we need a coordinate and an explosion type. And of course we need some private variables here. We need a coordinate, coord entity, that is, underscore coordinate, and we set that to the coordinate. Right, perfect. We need to move the coord entity coord within the class, of course. And then let's set it to private, and let's add private string arrays for the 5 sprites. And the final one will just be blanks to delete the final sprite. We also need a timer. Let's call it timer. And then we need a number of animations, which will separate the large and small ones. And then we need to keep track of the current animation, private int animation. So we set the animation to 0 initially, and then we'll write an initSprite method, which will be private, of course, private void initSprite. And here we will just set the underscore sprite 1 to 5 variables. Starting with sprite 1, set it to new string array. New string array of 3, empty brackets. Let's just copy the strings I have here in the other file. First row, second, and there we go. That was the first sprite. And we just copy the block. Number 2, 3, 4, 5. Second one. So let's just copy all the sprites. And sprite number 4. Let's add another private method, init explosion type, I mean. So private void init explosion type, which will take an explosion type. All right. And in here we'll start by setting the x value to -1. That is just to make the explosion to be centered above the enemy. So if the explosion type is small, Then we just set the number of sprites to 3, and otherwise it will be 4 animations. Now let's have a look at the public methods that we need. Actually, I only think we need a plot method. So public void plot. We return a bool here just to keep track of whenever the explosion is completed. So a bool result, which we initially set to false, and then we need a string array sprite, which we set to null for now. And so if it's time to plot, we use our timer. If underscore timer is counting, then do nothing, just return the results. Otherwise, we switch over the animation variable. So if it's 0, we set our temporary sprite variable to underscore sprite1 and then break. Same thing for case 2, 3, 1 and 2, I mean. So, I'm sorry, there we go. Case 1, then we set it to sprite 2. Case 3, then we set it to sprite 3. Case 4, we set it to sprite 5. Oh, no, wait, okay. Here we need an if statement. If number of animations equals 3, then we set the sprite variable to sprite 5. We also set the result boolean to true. If the number of animations is set to 4, we add this else case, where we set the sprite variable to sprite 4. Okay. Alright, and then we have case number 4. Then we just set the sprite variable to sprite and number 5. Finally, we add a default case. We increase the animation variable, and we set the color to yellow, and then it's time to plot the sprite variable that is now set. So we loop over the number of rows that we have in our sprite, sprite height, then an in other for loop, where we loop over the sprite width. Alright. And here we just add, or use the at method, underscore coordinate x plus j, and underscore coordinate y plus I. And there we just, and then we add the string, which is sprite indexed over I and j, and set it to string. Finally, we add the constants, sprite height 3 and sprite width, which we set to we'll set to 9. The explosion class is now ready.